Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining me for this presentation. I'm really excited to talk about customized employment and share the message with folks and help increase the knowledge and increase the understanding and increase the awareness so that it's a service that hopefully, and y'all learn more about it, hopefully as we continue to grow it in Virginia, that folks who can benefit from it know about it, can find it, can access it, and can achieve positive career outcomes as a result of that. So if you're with me, you're here for a presentation on customized employment, leveraging job seekers' social capital and innate strengths to find successful employment. My name is Richard Kriner, and I work for the Virginia Department for Aging and Rehab Services and work out of our central office, providing support on our customized employment project, which is a relatively new project, kind of a systems transformation grant that we have been working on in collaboration with DBHDS to develop this service and create capacity and ensure that we create services that are done with fidelity across Virginia. The other hat I wear, and some of y'all might know me from this, is also my role in serving as a project coordinator on our autism services program, which is a service that's available for clients of our VR agency, as well as our pre-ETS clients with autism. Now I'm gonna so we got an hour, which seems like a lot of time, but customized employment is pretty in-depth and complex. So my hope tonight is to give you a macro overview, start a little bit just with talking about DARS. Assuming most people probably already know about that, but I think it's important just to set the context and talk about where customized employment sits within DARS and how that program works. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the different elements of customized employment, share some examples with you guys. So in terms of VA DARS, this is, I'm speaking tonight on behalf of our state vocational rehab program. It's a program that's here to assist people with disabilities to prepare for, enter, engage in, or retain gainful employment. Participation is voluntary, and there's some eligibility criteria as it relates to individuals that have a disability that impacts their ability to find or maintain work, or they're underemployed, and individuals that can benefit from our services. And really exciting news is that right now we don't have a waiting list. It's first time in a long time that our agency is gone for a pretty extensive period with no waiting list for service. On the flip side, I guess this is the irony of things, COVID has really done a number on the workforce, and in particular, a lot of the vendors that we work with, including those ESOs that provide things like supported employment and customized employment, have been impacted by that and are still working to replenish their workforce and get up and running at full speed. So a lot of our vendors have wait lists, even though DARS does not. Just in terms of the VR program, we have local field offices across the Commonwealth. Here I've put a map up that highlights our different districts. And wouldn't you know it, within the last month, that has changed. We now have an additional district that's not on here, so this map needs to change. But for the most part, this is all correct. The exception would be that, and I'm not sure the exact lines of it, but our new district director would be John Jackson, and he is out of the Fishersville area and kind of covers that district area. I'll make sure y'all get the new map when I send out the slides. So context-wise, I think as we talk about customized employment, recognizing it is part of bigger movements, bigger initiatives that are really emphasizing change, innovation, opportunity, and a big shift in the paradigm about how we think, how we practice, how we define what success is. So those things would include stuff like the Employment First movement. Would also include WIOA, or the Workforce Opportunity Act of 2014, and then customized employment, which was written in as part of the service that VR agencies are required to provide. So good news is it puts us in a situation now where we're able to invest in projects like we have going on right now to help develop this service. And it is a bit of a shift. So as I go in, and I'll talk a little bit about where we are in terms of developing that, I think that just kind of puts into context a little bit of why it's not something we can do overnight, why it takes time, while there's some critical elements in terms of training and capacity development and fidelity, emphasis on quality practices, systems alignment and policy change that are all part of it. So it's kind of a long-term, significant capacity project where sustainability and quality are emphasized throughout. WIO is really the new thing that's driving VR agencies around the country in terms of what their performance measures are, how they work with individuals, who they work with, and what's important in terms of how we're measured in terms of our success at carrying out our role and meeting our charge. With WIOA, it emphasizes competitive integrated employment. It increased transition services for Virginians with disabilities and all the other states as well. You guys are probably familiar with PREETS services, which is an array of services that are available for in-school youth with disability that has a set of kind of 4 core service areas that we've been providing over the last few years, and how that's new. And it's part of the VR program, but it's also a little bit different in terms of who's eligible to receive those things. WIO also expands on and improves upon employment services. Henceforth, we got customized employment. And then the foundation of the VR program is a principle that individuals with disabilities, including those with the most significant disabilities, are capable of achieving high quality, competitive, integrated employment when provided the necessary supports and services. And then again, once y'all get the slides, I've embedded documents throughout these. So you'll see down here where there's a little PDF. If you click on that, that'll bring up a fact sheet, a little 1-pager that'll go into more detail about WIO, again, for folks that like to do the deep dive. So what is customized employment? That's what we're here to talk about, right? And how is it different than what our kind of legacy supported employment models are doing? Let me give you a couple definitions. One comes from Griffin Hamas, one comes from ODEP. Customized employment means individualizing the employment relationship between employees and employers in ways that meet the needs of both. Now that's really important. As we go through, I'll explain more what I mean by in ways that meet the needs of both. ODEP describes it as it is based on an individual determination of strengths, needs, and interest of the person with a disability, and is also designed to meet the specific needs of an employer. So very similar. The other thing to note is customized employment is not a standalone service. In fact, it oftentimes includes multiple other services such as assistive technology, job coaching, behavioral supports, benefits counseling, and you name it, direct one-on-one community-based support services for adaptive skills training, to name a few different things that might be included as part of the CE process. So in terms of thinking about similarities and differences between customized employment and supported employment, and just to kind of give some context, supported employment is the model that most of you probably are familiar with if you're already familiar with a VR program, where an individual with a disability is matched up with a job coach that then works with that individual to go out and do job development based on existing jobs that are already available in the labor market. And then once they get placed on the job, they work with them to provide on-the-job supports until they achieve a level of independence and they're able to fade away those supports. So when we look at supported employment, we compare it to customized employment. Some of the differences are supported employment focuses on labor market needs. Okay, so it's based on jobs that already exist, jobs that where we know that we have employment gaps, that where it's kind of demand side. Businesses are saying these are the growing jobs, these are the growing industries. This is where we need to get folks trained up. This is where we have a gap. Customized employment is more focused on the individual, their talents, their skills, their interests, and their conditions for success. Supported employment, looking for a good fit, placement, and training as needed. Okay, and then with customized employment, results in a new position being created for a person. Okay, so the placement's not happening. It's not competitive. It's happening in the community. It's integrated, but it's not competitive because the job never exists. There's no application process or interview process outside of the context of what CE is doing. So it's that job that we're creating is going to be based on the job seeker's skills and talents, their potential contributions, and then also based on an unmet business need that we identify through the process. Supported employment, job carving may be an option. Job carving is when there's an existing job and we engage with a business, we go through the interview or the application process, and we work with them to carve out certain elements of the job that are the best fit for the individual. So instead of doing A through Z, the individual might be doing A through C. With customized employment, the job is negotiated and a new job description is created. It's flexible and it's personalized. With supported employment, we generally focus on the individual completing already identified job duties to meet the employer's need. With customized employment, it may incorporate equipment, materials, or unique skills of the job seeker to either meet a need or grow the business in a new capacity, which is really exciting. All right, so now that I gave you kind of a snapshot of that little compare and contrast our existing models or kind of our legacy models to what CE is and where they're different and what CE brings to the table. I want to talk a little bit about our project here in Virginia to develop capacity, kind of do that systems transformation and bring about access to those the CE services. So Virginia's been working with Griffin Hamas Associates through a contract that included funding that DBHDS was able to provide for this purpose to assist STARS and Griffin Hamas in doing this work. They're providing training and technical assistance and mentoring and helping facilitate state level leadership and communities of practice to enable the work and the project outcomes we're trying to achieve. From 2017 through 2019, they've helped us implement CE on a limited basis within DARS and with our CE providers that have gone through training and achieved a level of knowledge and skills competencies to become vendors. In 2020, we did a second round of funding with them. So we're actually in that project right now. And through that, we're doing additional training and project development to expand and enhance what we're able to do with customized employment. And then we're really at this point continuing to look at the capacity development, systems alignment, between how DARS and waiver define the service definition, how we set our rate structures, how we identify who's a provider and what those minimum knowledge and skills competencies are, who's eligible for the service, and those kind of things. And then we're also really focusing on fidelity. So we don't just want to get people trained, kind of create the policy and the service guidelines. We want to make sure that not only do folks have that didactic knowledge, but we're integrating in mentoring and coaching to support our new learners while they're practicing the skills so that they can really fully develop those skills. And then ultimately our goal is to put Virginia in a position where we don't need to rely on an outside contractor to come in, that we have within Virginia a system to support the ongoing training and capacity development to allow for scalability and sustainability. In terms of, so what DARS has been able to do, we created, now this was probably around 2019, we created a new service definition and a new rate structure and set up the vendorship process with providers to deliver the service. Again, kind of what sets CE apart from supported employment is supported employment. When we're working with our vendors to deliver that service, that's a fee for service hourly rate that they get to do that work. With customized employment, it's a flat rate and it's performance based. And so you'll see we got 5 different phases. And each of these phases is tied to an element of the CE process, which you're going to be learning a little bit more about. And then in terms of rates, we have a Northern Virginia rate and then a rest of state rate, like we do with most services. Who's customized employment for? So at this time, if you remember, we kind of talked about that we're rolling it out on a limited basis. And so in terms of understanding how customized employment works, and the positive impacts that have been achieved through customized employment, really, you could say anybody could benefit from it, but pragmatically, resourcing wise, we're not able to provide it to everybody. Instead, we have chosen to focus on individuals with the most significant disabilities who would also qualify for supported employment, but because of the functional limitations and the nature and the complexity of the different interactions of their disability, are not likely to achieve a positive outcome if they have to go that route of the competitive labor market model. For example, having to do interviews and compete with a lot of other job seekers, having to fit very specific and concrete job profiles in order to get the job. And then the other element is we're looking at working with individuals with DDID as the primary focus. And partially that's because our funding is coming from DBHDS. But I think as we look at Virginia and we look at where we have underserved populations and who is oftentimes going to likely fit that description that I provided for that target audience is going to be our DDID population. Now, the one thing I will say is we have, because of the money that we were able to get from DBHDS, we have some dedicated dollars that we're able to assist the field offices with providing that service. And all those dedicated dollars have to be used on individuals with DDID, but we can work with folks with other disability types, but that would come out of the local field office budget. So we're serving more than just DDID, but I would say a lot of the emphasis right now in terms of building that infrastructure and where the extra funding is prioritized towards is the DDID population. Who can provide customized employment? So again, I mentioned capacity development and fidelity being really important. So we have created a criteria for vendors that's based on the completion of a national recognized certification program through ACRE. That's the didactic training portion. Initially, during our first round, as we built our vendorship, we really set that as the bar for what vendors would be required to be eligible to deliver the service. But since we've implemented this phase 2 in 2020, we've added another component, which includes completion of the didactic training, passing the test, earning their ACRE certificate with specialization in customized employment. They also have to do a field work assignment where they receive mentoring and where they are submitting their products that they're doing through working directly with an individual, providing the service to our partner, Griffin Hammis, for review and again, feedback and mentoring. And they need to achieve a certain level of fidelity before they pass that. Once they pass that, then they are set up as a vendor and they're able to provide the work. Until they pass that, it's more of a provisional vendorship. If you want to find out more about that, I've included some links here that will take you to the ACRE's training curriculum and show you the different learning objectives and the core competencies associated with that training. When we first did those trainings, and I would say that was probably back in 2017, we did trainings all around Virginia, and we went out into communities and it was all face-to-face. And when we got our second round of funding, we were looking to roll that out for phase 2 of the project. Our plan had been to do another round of face-to-face trainings, and then COVID hit. And we were all scrambling, and we were really concerned that that was going to bottleneck the process. That was going to put a freeze on everything. So we figured out a way to set it up and do it virtually, which has really been successful. And I think maybe it won't supplant moving forward the quality and the value of doing the face-to-face stuff, but I think it's a way to reach folks where maybe they would not have previously been able to participate in training. So it's a model we'll continue to use. Now, in terms of talking about customized employment, you can really break it down into 4 distinct phases. Within each of those phases, there's sub-elements, but it all starts with discovering personal genius. And that's that part where I talked about earlier, where it's all driven by getting to know the individual, discovering who they are, their strengths, their talents, their interests, their resources, their social capital, their conditions for success. Then from there, we move into the customized job development and negotiation. Once we've achieved a placement, then we provide the worksite supports, which is pretty similar to how we would do supported employment, That's job site training. I would say maybe an element of customized employment that is a little different in terms of being something we really prioritize and emphasize is the use of natural supports. So we're always looking at when we're doing creating a customized position, how does the typical employee get trained? Who trains that employee? And trying to implement strategies where the work site training is occurring in that very natural context, and supporting that to happen. And then the last piece of it is career sustainability, making sure that once people are placed, they learn the job, they're able to do the job with independence and with quality, that we're putting things in place to allow them to be self-sufficient, independent, and have a quality of life long-term. And that can include a range of things like benefits planning and connecting them with other resources and supports. Okay, so in terms of those four phases, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through in a little bit more detail those four phases and what they look like and what are some critical elements of each. So first phase there is that discovery. With discovery, here's some tenets that are really important that we tell our providers when we're training them and helping them to learn and apply the intervention. Discovery is a no-fail process, and it's not an assessment. So a lot of times with our traditional models, we had things like situational assessments or vocational evaluations. And a lot of times that tends to lean towards a deficit checklist. It's more about what somebody can't do, and it's very comparative. With discovery, we're answering the question, who is this person? We're not even talking about developing a job goal yet. We got to start with understanding the individual. And from that, then we move in to the job goals and stuff. And we can spend in discovery, average length of time is about 12 weeks, really getting to know the individual and going through each of these steps I'm going to talk to you about in discovery. Discovery uses real environments to better understand the person, their preferences, their interests, their skills, their abilities, their resources, and their supports. So we're meeting them in their home. We're meeting them in their community. We're interviewing people that know them, that are important to them in their life, that interact with them on a regular basis. Discovery results in a completed vocational profile of the individual and at least 3 vocational themes. And I'll talk a little bit more about the profile and what a vocational theme is. It's different. I'll give you a hint. It's different than a job goal. Discovery is fast-paced, so while we want to be very thorough and comprehensive, it needs to be done with urgency. And so it also can change as new information is learned. So even though I'm going to be talking to you about customized employment as having distinct phases, we look at the products like the vocational profile and the discovery staging record that comes out of these things as being a living document. And as we gain more information, we go back and we add to it, we change and we tweak it. It's very much of an organic living thing. Unique aspects of discovery, is compared, and I talked a little bit about this already. With traditional evaluation, we're talking about structured settings. We're talking about things that are comparative, performance-based, focus on deficits, and oftentimes standardized and prescribed. With discovery, natural setting, individualized, data comes from observation, focus on attributes, and it's comprehensive. So some of the distinct phases within discovery, and I'll really say there's kind of like 3 distinct phases. Starts first with a home and neighborhood area observations. It's where we get out and we go meet that individual in those environments. We take tours of their local neighborhood and the local community with them. We conduct interviews with natural supports and individuals who know the job seeker well, family members, sometimes it's teachers that worked with them at the secondary school level, sometimes it's friends or mentors, coaches, a range of folks. We really want to connect with folks that the individual feels are important for us to connect with, that can help paint the picture with more depth in terms of who are they. We participate in familiar community-based activities that demonstrate interests, performance, skills, community connections, and supports. So, if they're on a sports team, we're going to go join them when they do that, or if they're a volunteer coach on a sports team, or if they are involved in clubs, or doing things in the community, or they have a favorite hobby shop they like to go into, whatever it might be. We really want to kind of connect with them and observe them and be around them while they're engaged in things that are part of their daily routine, and part of things that are really meaningful to them, part of important aspects of their life. With discovery, we can also set up unfamiliar community-based activities. We want to, when we're doing this, a lot of times, so it's kind of, we're stacking. And by this time, we're starting to create some hypotheses about what might be some emerging talents, some emerging vocational themes based on the individual's interest and what they do and what they like and where they're at their best. And so when we're setting these things up, it's kind of simulation, and that we want to be able to expose them to it. And we want to see what kind of reactions they have to different demands. We want to see if exposing to something sparks an interest. We want to understand better what kind of supports might be needed in doing these things. And we want to have a chance to, again, like if we have a hypothesis about an emergent skill, we want to be able to test that out based on more of a work test type of scenario. And then a lot of times during this, we might include things like work-based learning experiences, visiting places of employment related to the emerging vocational themes, and learning more about that various aspects of the jobs. And I'll talk to you guys about informational interviews and work-based learning a little bit later on. So vocational themes, what is a vocational theme? I keep talking about them. So unlike a job goal, which is very specific, cashier, IT analyst, clerk, whatever it might be. Vocational themes are broad categories of employment that represent an almost unlimited collection of many jobs, environments, skills, tasks, sets, and interests. So instead of funneling it down, we're funneling it up, okay? Themes begin to emerge as the individual is observed in the home and in the community, and they're based on observations of the job seeker's tasks, interests, skills, attributes, characteristics, and conditions. Themes are not a job description. They're not codes, again, stock, clerk, greeter, etc. All right, so here's just some, I like to include pictures sometimes. These are things I already talked about. So again, we're meeting folks, we're coming out to their home, where if they got certain chores that they do, maybe they're, in charge of preparing Sunday brunch. We want to join them while they're doing that, take a look at it. If they're open to it, we want to take a look at their bedroom, look at their bookshelf, look at their wall, what they got on their wall, look at, what they're collecting, what they're into, what really gets their interest. A lot of times we call this smooth interest, smooth listening. It's kind of like being a detective, kind of checking out what's going on. Kind of like I grew up on Columbo. I don't know, depending kind of what age range folks are that will listen to this, that might be a little bit too old for you guys, but he was this really cool detective, and he had always had a real unique way about pulling information out of people and asking questions. He was curious and really observant. And that's a good customized employment provider that does good work with discovery, is really good at observing. They're interested, they're open, and they're curious about things. Discovering familiar activities. So, whether it's going out, maybe you got a farmer's market, in your area every Sunday, and the job seeker that we're working with really enjoys going there. And there's a favorite food vendor they like to go to, and maybe they got some relationship with some of the folks there and they like to chat with them. We're going to go hang out with them there and check it out, see what we can learn. And then the unfamiliar activities, where we're really kind of testing those hypotheses. We want these things to be action oriented and really goal directed and focused. So, it's not going out to go walk through Walmart with you or go buy a Starbucks coffee with you. At this point, we're really starting to key in on some of those vocational themes. We have some hypotheses. We want to test them. We want to expose folks to new things. We want to see what kind of interest we spark. We want to see how they respond to different demands. And then through this, again, we're continuing to get down deeper and develop more clarity as it relates to those emerging vocational themes that somebody might have. So here's some examples, okay? So each vocational theme should be explored and confirmed in discovery through active participation and additional community and work-based learning activities. These are set up and arranged by the employment specialist and may use personal connections and resources of the team members, the support team members. And I don't know if I emphasize that. Another part of customized employment is it's really team-based. And to be effective, the support team, which would be the paid supports, the funding agency, and then those individuals that are important to the person of focus, whether it's family members, friends, mentors, other folks that they want to be involved. We should be connecting on a regular basis as a full team, talking about what's going on, sharing information, making sure we're all on the same page, planning, providing each other with social capital, whatever it might be. But in terms of vocational themes, here's an example of what themes might look like. So for theme 1, this individual had organizing. For theme 2, they had advocacy. For theme 5, you have food and cooking. Okay. So you see how those are broader versus saying a specific job goal. These are things where we could observe traits, we could observe talents, we could observe interests, and observe those emergent skills as it relates to these kind of things. And then as we get to that point of identifying those vocational themes and getting into the planning, we want to work together to start to identify local businesses that hire folks that would share similar vocational profiles with similar vocational themes. So you could see here where they started identifying some businesses, CD Warehouse, First National Bank, Valley Auto for organizing, for advocacy, State Highway Department, Valley City Police Department. And as you'll see, there's a mix. One of the things we really like to focus on, and I think I might have mentioned this, but you can never say it enough, is for customized employment, we're really looking at getting connected into the small business community. And I'll go in a little bit more as to why that's important. But small businesses and the artisan community is really where it's at and where we can make some cool things happen. And I think it's an area that traditionally has been neglected in the old school kind of labor market supported employment approach that VR has employed. So informational interviewing is a very important aspect of all of this. This can occur at the discovery phase, or it can occur later on in the process where we're trying to get to know local businesses to see what needs might exist. So in terms of kind of giving a description, an informational interview is a business term that is being used to describe an essential element of customized employment. The purpose of an informational interview is to learn about a potential career when information is not readily available. They are informal conversations with people who work in the area of career of interest. An individual who wants to learn more about a chosen field identifies people who are willing to talk about the careers or jobs. When used as a customized employment practice, the focus is on getting to know a business in a similar way that discovery focuses on getting to know an individual job seeker. And then you'll notice on here, I get another document embedded that is like a one-page fact sheet that talks more about informational interviews as it relates to the customized employment process. Here's an example of, and y'all would note on that my first slide, I had Griffin Hammis logo up there, and I also had Choice Group logo up there. They're a vendor that we work with, and they provided this example to me. And they're one of our go-to providers with customized employment that have really been investing in it and doing good work with us as it relates to customized employment. So this is an example where they went out to a small business in the local community. They approached them saying, hey, we're doing economic development research. We really love to just talk to you and hear about your business. We're excited to hear what you do and why you do it and how you do it and where you might have needs or visions for growth. And so this is what they came up with, kind of a summary of this business and what they do. They talked a little bit about the target audience and the customer base and what makes them unique. And then they were able to learn some about different opportunities for expansion that this individual was interested in. So you see where connecting with a business in this way could really lead to fantastic opportunities that we would never have known about if we didn't. So the thing about customized employment is it takes that concept of abundance, that there are limitless jobs out there that can fit the individuals that we're working with. Jobs where they can contribute, where their talents would be valued, right? But we got to get out of the office. We got to go out there and connect. We got to hit it at the ground level because we'll never know what exists if we're not doing that. So it's a really exciting part about customized employment, I think. Another element of customized employment that's super important is recognizing the value of social capital, right? It's a lot of times, I think back when I was growing up, they'd always say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm telling you, right, it's so big. If I were to lose my job today, I'm not going to go on, I don't even know the job search engines anymore, what people look at, but I wouldn't go on them and I wouldn't pick up the help wanted ads. I would reach out to folks that I know, connections that I have, and I might get more connections from them and build on that. It's the power of social capital, right? So key characteristics of developing social capital for individuals that we're working with, things that we're really using as guidelines is social, it's social connectedness is central premise, right? It's all about interconnectedness in communities and that social connectedness. Relationships, social networks, and how people help one another are very important to understand and apply to the work that we're doing. And then social capital is a lot about reciprocity, giving and receiving, the actions of supporting and helping and receiving support. So a lot of times, as part of our process, we're going out and we're connecting with businesses and learning about what's going on, but we're also trying to identify gurus, folks that are, they have social capital in those industries, are well known within the circles of that industry that fit the vocational theme of the individual. And sometimes we're able to set up things like mentoring relationships where that individual is spending some time just working with the individual, maybe coaching them up a little bit, but then also sharing social capital with them to help them connect, whether it's to learn or help them connect with employment opportunities through that. So it's a really important aspect of what we do. And with social capital, if you think about the team-based model I was talking about, one of the things that we look at in doing customized employment is the team comes together and we're all looking to contribute to the process. We're all looking to contribute to the outcome. So a lot of times as I'm involved is kind of a wraparound support to assist teams that are working with individuals in customized employment. And we're at this phase, I'm coming to the table and I'm identifying people I know, right? Or businesses I can recommend, or contacts I can help facilitate to contribute to that. A lot of times family members are thinking about that, whether it's neighbors, friends, work acquaintances, you name it, right? The more that we can bring to the table and we can leverage, we can have that warm handoff and there can be that social capital element to what we're doing, the higher the potential that we're going to create something that's going to turn out an outcome. Again, with this one, I've embedded another document. It's a 1 or 2 page information brief. It talks more about social capital, does it in a more eloquent way than I can. And talks about it within the framework of customized employment. So our next phase that we get to is once we've kind of moved all the way through discovery, we've identified those vocational themes, we've developed and fleshed out that list of 20. Typically, we got 3 themes and a list of 20 under each of those themes, right? So now we're going to get into the job search planning. And so this is using the information learned about an individual in discovery to develop a plan toward meaningful employment. We're going to research a local list of those potential employers. We're going to continue to curate that list and really fine tune that list. And then we're going to use that to guide the actual development that the provider is going to jump into. So the steps here, completing the vocational profile, that list of 20, and then oftentimes we're doing a visual resume, sometimes a portfolio, sometimes we're getting creative and we're using things like LinkedIn or other multimedia strategies to be able to share with potential leads the talents, the contributions that the individual representing could bring to the table for them. Vocational profile, in terms of what does that entail? It's a strengths-focused narrative that's written objectively. It's going to describe all the information learned about that job seeker during discovery. It'll hit on things like what works and what doesn't work, what are the best settings, what are the ideal interests that hone in on, what are the skills and talents, what are the personal attributes and characteristics of that individual, and then those conditions for success and the support needs. And then the vocational themes will be written out there with that list of 20 included. One of the things I want to come back here and say is I mentioned skills and attributes, and then also talents, right? Interest, skills, and talents. Really important to know that interests alone don't get us jobs. So we're always looking at those emergent talents and those latent talents that somebody has. in an ideal situation, will be at the crosswalk, right? Where somebody has an interest in a specific area, say maybe it's animal care and pets and something of that nature is where their interest in is, but they are also demonstrating skills and talents as it relates to organizational skills. And so maybe a customized position that we're able to develop is working with a small vet who wants to really update the informational material they provide to customers when they come to pick up their pets after they've been boarded, to include pictures of the pets, fun narratives, organize it a little bit different and do things like that. So we've got them working in a business that ties in with their interests, and then doing job tasks that also tie in with their strengths and their talents. Again, list of 20. Here's another example of some different vocational themes. I know a lot of times folks have a hard time grasping this when they're so used to thinking of things in terms of job goals. So I think it's always good to just kind of throw out as many examples as possible. So again, organizing both physical items and basic data on computer were one of the themes for this individual. Advocacy, helpfulness, and customer service, and then food and cooking. Okay, and then you'll see where they've now taken those list of small businesses in the area and they've fleshed them out. So there's now 20. I mentioned I would come back around to small businesses, why they're so important. So really, when you think about customized employment, something being really driven in social capital and community connection, the power of being able to work with a small business means you can connect directly with the person that's the decision maker, the business owner. You don't have to go through HR. You don't have to worry about that extra red tape, right? With small businesses, because they don't have all those layers and that extra bureaucracy, they tend to be way more flexible, and therefore they're able to negotiate and help customize more readily job positions for individuals. Small businesses also have needs that larger ones do not have. And we're able to help more. So if you think of larger businesses, they tend to be so compartmentalized, and they have a unit and a department for everything. Whereas a small business, oftentimes, that's kind of the, you look up multitasking in the dictionary, it's going to be a small business owner, right? They're doing a whole lot of things. Their customer service person also has to be their marketing person and their quality control person. And so a lot of times to be to connect in a small business and start to look at what's going on, and maybe where they're doing something one way, and we can help them identify another way to do it that's going to provide a return on investment for them and really help their bottom line. And we can create those kind of customized positions. Job descriptions by nature are more fluid and are much less title driven in small businesses. Then owners are by trade and choice individuals with vision and passion. If you're going to survive and thrive as a small business owner, you got to be creative. You got to embrace innovation, right? And you always got to be forward thinking. And so these folks really kind of tend to have the right mindset in terms of working with us. We really want to stay away from those big box stores, and we really want to stay away from the usual suspects, those unskilled jobs that so often, too often in the past, folks have been placed in and considered a success. I talked a little bit about the visual resume. So kind of here's an example of what one might look like. We use during discovery and when we're developing the products through that, during the point where the provider's doing observations and they're doing their narrative stuff, we really encourage the use of pictures as well. So like if they're in the room and they're taking pictures of maybe the individual's really into Legos and they've done some like fantastic, crazy, complex Lego projects, taking pictures of that, or taking pictures of all the awards they received for, the art program they were in, or their bookshelf, or how they organize something. Those kind of things are really important in terms of being able to describe, right, and tell the story of who the individual is and what they can do. As we move into those CE development activities, this is the point where we really, we got that vocational profile nailed down. We've got the themes nailed down. We've got a list of 20. Again, remember, everything's fluid, so those don't have to be written in stone. As a matter of fact, I think oftentimes as the teams start to drill down deeper into those small businesses, they're learning more about other businesses that would fit well within that column, and they're getting warm handoffs to those other businesses, or by connecting with one business, they're doing some supply chain mining which means they're learning about vendors that provide goods and services to the small business they're talking about. That could also be a good point of contact to develop something. So really the development aspect is all about continuing to research and network, develop contacts and relationships. We're going to set up and conduct informational interviews and tours. We'll do some job task analysis for existing jobs, as well as identifying unmet needs. So a lot of times the interaction with a small business can really get to that point where they're open to the individual coming through and taking a look at some of their different positions and how they operate and what the task demands are. And at that point, they can start to kind of map out what is going on in the environment, the task demands, the pace, and all those different things. And it really helps us to kind of key in and match that over to the individual's vocational profile, ensure that we're honoring those conditions for success, those interests, those talents, those goals and preferences. May include development of a short-term work experience. It could be mentor relationships or vocational skills training opportunities, such as paid work and apprenticeships. I'll give you an example here. We have an individual that we're close to closing as one of our first success stories in customized employment. They were hired on as an independent contractor by a small OT practice that works in Ashland and Henrico in the Metro Richmond area. They have OTs that provide services through a range of different funding, whether it's waiver, Medicaid, insurance, private pay, to individuals across the lifespan. And this individual was hired on as an independent contractor to help with some kind of office admin type task. And they initially, the individual expressed an interest. They were really impressed with the candidate. This was something new for the business. This was something new for the individual. And so when we all kind of got together and we put our heads together, we felt like the best thing to do was do like a 30-day tryout. And at that point, the business actually went ahead and did a contract with them and was paying them. And we started them at 5 hours. And during that 90-day period, they tried out different work. As new work was coming in, we were able to do some of our wraparound services, like we brought in our AT team and our rehab engineers to help look at the workstation, to look at assistive technology, to do some modifications so that we could really support the individual with doing different tasks with quality and pace. And new tasks were brought on. At this point, now the individual's been working there for about 6 months. They recently got a wage increase, and they recently had their hours increased to 15 hours. And the goal is within the next month to have them up to 20 hours. So that was an example though where we were able to kind of start off and use a paid work experience before we really honed in and said, this is the placement, this is what we want, this is right for the individual's happy there, and it's a good fit. We're looking at presenting the job seeker and establishing value to the organization. So, you know, it's all about meeting both the individual need and the business need, right? There needs to be a return on that investment for them. It's not about charity. We're not selling that. It's about the power of these practices to contribute to your business bottom line, to add to your core services and what you're doing. So we're always emphasizing what the contributions, what the talents and those positive characteristics the individual has and how they fit in with that business and that business need. We'll start to work on and develop informal and formal proposals for that business as we kind of try to seek to hone in on a proposal that's going to be a good fit for all parties involved. And then we're going to analyze planning strategies and support to facilitate a successful match. You know, and I talked a little bit about this, is how can we maximize the use of natural supports or natural cues in the environment? What can we do in terms of bringing AT to the table to support the individual and remediate challenges, promote achievement? How can we put together a good training plan for the individual that the business could implement, not just with the initial onboarding with the support of the job coach, but long-term, recognizing that if we're really doing a good job, that we're putting people in jobs where that potential of increased earnings and increased roles is there, right? So it's kind of going to be an ongoing thing, we would hope, in terms of training and learning new things. And then what do we need to do to ensure that there's ongoing supports there to allow for sustainability and growth for that individual? So again, this is kind of at the placement phase. Here we're working with that job seeker and the employer. We're negotiating a customized job. We're looking at work tasks the business needs completed that the job seeker can complete, job resources to enhance the job seeker's performance. That's where like things like the AT come in, or the rehab engineering, or other supports and resources that we can bring to the table. We're talking about the pay, trying to match that up well with the individual's goals and their needs. And then we're talking about the accommodations. Other considerations, and I didn't go into a whole lot on these topics, but they are just as viable and essential elements of customized employment as anything else I've already discussed. One would be the concept of resource ownership. And with this approach, what we do is we're leveraging the power of tools and equipment that we can present to the business within that job proposal that would go along with the individual. So say, for example, we're working with individual, we're communicating with a small ice cream shop in an area, small business that does ice cream. And we've identified that they have a really strong interest in expanding their business. They want an ice cream cart, and they want to be able to bring that ice cream cart out in the summer to the local park, but they don't have the capital to invest in it at this point. It's kind of a long range plan. Well, if we had a job seeker and that was running the ice cream cart was the good fit, it was a good match for them, and we were able to say, hey, we're going to buy that ice cream cart and all the tools and equipment. Individuals going to be trained on how they operate it and going to be able to operate it. As part of the conditions of this proposal we're giving you, this individual is going to come along with those tools and equipment. Now, those tools and equipment, if the individual leaves, goes with the individual. But do you see how that's kind of a value add proposal? And we can use that in all different kind of ways in terms of creating creative opportunities and unique opportunities to support the business with enhancing or expanding services, as well as supporting our individuals with attaining a good customized job placement. And then lastly, customized self-employment enterprise is absolutely something that we can look at. And that's where, you know, as we're going through the process, we land on a position where that individual being self-employed is going to be the ideal position. It's going to be the ideal conditions of a job. As a matter of fact, the individual I mentioned earlier that was hired as an independent contractor by that one business, he's set up as an LLC, because the work he's doing with that business, eventually at 20 hours a week, is work that he can do with other similar businesses down the road as he's ready and desires to increase his earnings. Okay, so it's a tool that we have that we can bring to the table, and something that I think should we achieve the full potential and realize the full impact of what customized employment can bring to Virginia, something that is going to be readily accessible and used effectively for individuals that we're working with when it's the right fit. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then post-employment supports. I just want to put this in here as a reminder that, you know, we're always looking at long-term, how do we support somebody? VR is a time-limited service, but before a case is closed, we should have a plan and an understanding of what needs that individual might have down the road in the future, and how we can help support them through information referral, coordination, and collaboration, so that down the road they have a plan and they have the confidence and the ability to access things that are identified in that plan to support long-term success. So, you know, remember, customized employment, people sometimes will say, well, supported employment is customized employment. It's not. They're different. They're unique. Okay. So they're similar in a lot of ways, but customized employment is the distinct and unique service that offers new things that supported employment does not offer. And right now in Virginia, we're targeting those services to different individuals of the different clients of the VR system. Things like resource ownership, business within a business, I didn't even get into that, micro enterprise, supported self-employment, and then customized employment practices are all unique to that model. In terms of what does it take to make it work, you know, what do we need to keep doing more of? What do we need to continue to embrace and invest in? You know, supporting individuals, stakeholders, job seekers, providers, funders, with looking at the community different, thinking about and acknowledging social capital as being really important, and actually getting out of the office and developing social capital for the individuals that we're supporting, making that a critical part of our plans, moving towards an economic development mindset, connecting with those small businesses, thinking about when we offer proposals, how can we help them grow and thrive as small businesses with the talent that we're bringing to the table and offering to them. Collaborating around the notion of person-centeredness and those approaches that are driven by the interests, preference, and strengths of one person, not a program. Remember, discovery starts with the individual. Before we even talk job stuff, we're getting to know that individual really well. And another point I didn't share is when we go through discovery, one of the products that the provider needs to deliver to us is a completed discovery staging record. Before DARS will approve that and reimburse that vendor, the individual and their support team needs to look it over and approve it. Okay, so this is about client-directed, client-centered practices. It's not program-driven. Okay, and then understand that disability does not occur in a vacuum, but rather as part of the local and global economy. Look, I don't know if any of you guys have ever looked at the Bio report. There is a tremendous economic interest of all businesses in the disability community. Okay, there's a lot of money attached to that. So businesses that are smart are recognizing that if they intend to serve those customers, they want to be able to tell the valued story about what they do and why their products are good and why to choose us. They need to practice that. They need to embrace and accept diversity in the workplace and be open to these new innovative ways of working, thinking, and doing. So that's it, folks.
Thanks, Richard. That was really good.
You are welcome.
Yeah. We can do Q&A if anybody has some questions. Is there a specific age group that you target or that seems to, this customized employment seems to work better for?
No, it's open as long as they're a client of the VR agency. And at this point, we start at age 14. Now, I don't think we've worked with anybody that young and really got it going. I think part of the thinking there is just that we because it is a service we want to do with intensity and with urgency, we want to make sure that they're able to dedicate and prioritize their time to doing that work versus having a schedule that's really filled up by activities that the school's requiring of them. But it definitely transition age, getting and working with folks, that I guess I think they call it semesters in the secondary school before they're exiting school, where we know that there's somebody that can benefit and has interest in the service would make sense. And then, yeah, all across the lifespan, people can benefit from the service and are eligible for it. I hope everybody has a good night. Be safe, be well.
Thank you so much, Richard. You take care.
Bye.
Thank you.